Good. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening for the April committee meeting of the Schenectady County Legislature. We're going to begin our meeting this evening with the Committee on Codes, Judiciary, and Consumer Affairs, to be chaired by Legislator Frazzoni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I call the Committee on Codes, Judiciary, and Consumer Affairs to order. There are 4 items on the agenda. We're going to go a little bit out of order and do 3 and then 6. The first is CJCA3, a resolution regarding the acceptance of monies from the New York State Division of Criminal Justice Services for the support of certain criminal investigative initiatives, and District Attorney Bob Carney is here to provide information on this initiative.
Hi, I'm here with Susan Casey, who is the director of our Child Advocacy Center. And Susan is going to be talking with me about the second proposal. But first, the non-fatal shootings. We just received a grant from the state for $65,840 to hire an investigator to work on non-fatal shootings with a project that was actually applied for by the Schenectady Police Department. So they put in for a crime analyst and a dedicated investigator for the police department, and also one for our office. And I said we would do that if you got the money. They got the money. This is an interim grant to get us from now to the beginning of the GIVE cycle, which is July 1st to June 30th. It's actually more money than we need to hire an investigator. Obviously, we intend to bring an investigator in at the level of my other investigators, which is about a $56,000 salary, I think. But this grant will allow us to do this project and to pay fully for the salary and the fringe benefits for the position, and some overtime, I believe. And the reason that non-fatal shooting initiative is important is because there are lots of cases where shooting victims are uncooperative. And oftentimes the police will kind of throw up their hands and say, well, if they're not going to help us, if they won't talk or won't do anything, then I'll go on to another case that could be more productive. But we have such a unique asset in this community to fight crime in terms of our camera system that there are many, many cases where our DA investigators that operate the camera system get leads. They get the actual video of the shooting. They get license plates. And then there are lots of other things that can be done to investigate those cases, like going to social media and analyzing cell phones, but they're all labor-intensive things. So if you have an investigator that's discouraged because they're not getting cooperation, with this commitment of resources just to these cases, call them bullet-to-skin cases, we should be able to make a difference. And our office can help, too, because we could decide to use the grand jury in ways that are, a little bit more powerful than some things the police have to work with. For instance, we can subpoena somebody to testify who is maybe a victim who's uncooperative. We may decide, well, this victim is not guilty of a crime, but, let's put him in grand jury. So it's a really good concept. And, I'd ask you to approve it. I also will tell you that I'm concerned that the state should continue to fund this. We got a little bit disappointed last week when we got our new GIVE award, and they're not really, even though they're doubling GIVE statewide, they only gave us a 27% increase and mandated that $250,000 of that go to probation. Probation only got, of our last grant, which was $758,000 last year, probation got, I think, $80,000. So now we're going to have to up their share. And it didn't seem there was enough new money in here to continue this initiative, even though they promised that they would do that. But I got a phone call this morning from the deputy commissioner who sent us the funding letter, and they've agreed that they're going to increase it by $200,000. So I think we're going to be okay for this year. They'll never give you a guarantee past 1 year, but they're not going to do this initiative without continuing it. They just I mean, we've had GIVE awards that we've never lost money in for 10 years. So I'm confident that it'll be there. Happy to take any questions about it.
Any questions or comments? No? Is there a motion to report? Mr. Hughes, is there a second? Mrs. Gammon? All those in favor? Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. And we're going to skip initiatives, resolutions 4 and 5 for now, move on to item CJCA 6, a resolution to create certain positions in the office of the Schenectady County District Attorney. And Mr. Carney will provide information on this.
So as I indicated, this is Susan Casey, our new director of the CAC, who's doing a wonderful job bringing that center to its full potential. And the two initiatives that we're asking to you to consider today is a modification of our budget to change two positions that we now contract out for services to convert them into in-house employee positions. For a small increase, we think we can do a much better job in both of these areas. One area is the licensed mental health clinician. Currently we get from our OVS grant $61,900 to perform that contract. We think we have the easy ability to amend our grant so that it now helps us fund a full-time position of a clinical mental health specialist at the CAC. And the problem with the contractual relationship that we have had currently with the YWCA, but before that it was Northern Rivers, it never paid us quite enough money to get a fully qualified person to be there full-time. And because we couldn't hire a fully licensed mental health clinician, we had to siphon off some part of that money to pay for supervision. So as a result, we didn't really get full commitment at the CAC. And when you look at the number of actual children that receive services from the mental health clinician, it's a really small number of the overall number of kids that come through the center. So we think that if we had a full-time employee doing that, we would do much better. And we have an excellent candidate who is fully licensed. We believe that she will take the job for the amount of money of $71,000. So that's a small increase of $9,100 from our current budget for the contracted services. We can move into this relationship if you approve it within 30 days, because our contract with the Y had a 30-day opt-out provision, a written notice, which was served by me today. So we can go down that road, and we just think you're gonna get a real dramatic increase in the number of children that will be provided mental health services free of cost. The quality of those services will be improved, and that will help us to continue to meet the standards of excellence required of a fully accredited CAC, which is Susan's first accomplishment since she joined us, was to, for the first time in many years, get full accreditation for the CAC. We were on probation for a number of years because we didn't meet some of the standards. So this will allow us to continue that. And the other change is to we are provided under our OVS grant $56,000 to pay for an independent contractor to provide forensic interviews. And the person that we have brought in on that contract is Yoni Moscow, who is a very experienced youth aid investigator with Schenectady. Susan believes that he's doing an excellent job. We want to retain him. There are some issues with his ability to get his pension. As a retired Schenectady police officer, he formed a corporate entity to do that, and which we thought would work, but it may not for him. There may be some problems, but if we convert him to a DA investigator assigned to do exactly what he's doing now, which is the forensic interviews of children, it's a perfectly fine use of a DA confidential investigator for a small increase in funds of from 56,000 to 63,597, Yoni would be thrilled, and we'll be able to get him a pension waiver like we do our other investigators. So that's, in essence, what I'm asking you to consider, and I'd ask Susan to give you talk a little bit about the CAC and take any questions that you have about either the proposal today or the CAC itself.
Thank you. So as everyone sees in front of them here, we have a little fact sheet that we put together for you on the Child Advocacy Center, and also a blue lapel pin, and I wanted to let everyone know that April is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and so that's what the blue lapel pins stand for, and that's why I'm wearing blue. So the CAC, it really is sort of a living, breathing entity in the county that I think not many people knew about. We pretty much are 24 hours a day. We get calls sometimes in the middle of the night, and we jump into action to serve the children of Schenectady County that are the victims of sexual abuse, physical abuse, and severe maltreatment. I really do feel that we've made some great strides since I started August 29th or August 31st. We've picked up a lot of momentum. As Bob said, Yoni is doing many forensic interviews to the point where even seasoned CPS caseworkers who have traditionally done their own forensic interviews are now asking him to do their interviews because they're seeing the consistency that we are getting in our cases when he's conducting those interviews. So I really do ask you to consider making that change to make him a confidential investigator for the DA's office stationed at our office. In terms of the mental health component, we refer every case that comes through the CAC to our mental health clinician, who is currently a contract employee. And we are just finding that the children are not being seen. We have a wait list. I do feel that this is a position that's extremely important. These children need to have an intake as soon as possible and services provided, sometimes long-term, sometimes just immediate, and then assistance finding them further counseling elsewhere. So that's another part of the team that we just feel there's been a hole kind of missing. And the group at the CAC, the staff, we have a lot of things that we want to do in terms of community outreach and education, and this is something that both the forensic interviewer and the mental health component would be able to assist with in planning those ventures. We also are planning to do an open house. I'd like to do it in April if possible for Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we will be inviting everyone here. So I'd encourage you to please come down, and you'd be able to meet with all of us in our office and have a tour of the space and learn a little bit more about what we all do in our office and how the multidisciplinary team for the County of Schenectady does its job.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Mr. Russo.
Legislator Frazzoni, thank you. So my question is, I just want clarification because I just want to understand the impact that we'll have. So when it talks about last year's grant cycle, October to September 2022, October 21 to September 22, 172 children presented themselves for interviews and only 10 made it into the caseload. Is that a function of the interview process over the workload balance between interview and counseling, and we can only do so much for the kids? Because I'm trying to, what I'm looking for is I'm trying to understand, so if we add another forensic interviewer, does that help with caseload on the clinician side? And then, and how many kids can we handle? Because 10 doesn't sound like a lot.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, I think the contractual relationship gives us less control over that than an employment relationship would. And one thing that we're also sure about the forensic interviewer, if Yoni is converted to an employee and he's there full-time, he will be able to conduct more interviews. And that's a metric that has a direct bearing on the amount of funding we get from OCFS, which is our other grant. So we think by having a forensic interviewer there full-time, we'll do more interviews. We'll have a better chance at getting increased funding for the CAC. And with a full-time clinician, I just think we're going to get somebody who's really aggressive and assertive and really, is going to see more kids. I think it's just a question of us being able to control the parameters of the relationship, which we aren't quite able to do under the contractual arrangement.
I appreciate the clarification. To me, again, 10 kids seen in that 1 year, 6 more in the first quarter of this last cycle, or fourth quarter of this last cycle. Those numbers seem incredibly small, and I have to imagine that there are more children in our community that need these supportive services, and so I
There
want to
are,
support the activity.
and that level of clinical services probably jeopardizes our accreditation if we don't make a change.
Ms. Osterlich?
Thank you. I just want to thank you for recognizing the need that we've just talked about and finding a budget-friendly way to go about helping these kids and improve investigations. It's such an important function of what you guys do, so thank you.
I'd also like to thank Julie McDonald, our auditor, for all the support she's given. I'd also note that on a separate track, Susan has re-energized the Friends of the CAC, which is a not-for-profit that was incorporated that is going to do fundraising, not for budgetary support, but for additional things that will make the CAC better and more comfortable place for kids.
Any other questions?
Just to add, just to thank you for the work that you are doing as far as getting our accreditation. This is a very, very serious issue, so really, really appreciate the work that you're doing and happy to support this. I kind of concur, I do agree with Rich Russo right here, that, that number is being very small, and I would imagine that there are more youth and young people that need these services. So the more that we can do, the better, because our youth need us, and we need to make sure that we're there for them as much as we possibly can be. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Is there a motion to report? Mr. Hughes, a second. Ms. Osterlich? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
The next item is CJCA4, a resolution establishing the rates of compensation for election workers employed by the Schenectady County Board of Elections. And I would ask County Election Commissioners Amy Hild and Darlene Harris to come up front and provide some information on the initiative.
Hello.
Hi.
Good evening and thank you. So this is our annual visit with you folks to establish the rates and stuff that we pay our inspectors. As you noted in our memo, we haven't made any additions or increases in any of our costs or status for any of them this year. The money that we set aside or that we estimated for our budget is based on these rates that you have before you. So there really isn't much change or anything like that, but certainly we would entertain any questions if you had such.
Move. Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The initiative is reported to the agenda.
Thank you.
Our last item this evening is CJCA5, a resolution regarding the acceptance of monies from the New York State Office of Indigent Legal Services for the funding of indigent legal defense services, and Commissioner of Finance Jackie Falatico is here to provide information.
Thank you very much. This is a continuation of grant funding we've received from the Office of Indigent Legal Defense at the state. There's multiple distributions, so we keep bringing grants before you. This is one of them. It is for $463,000 over a period of 3 years, and the action tonight is to enter into a multi-year agreement and also to do a budget amendment to accept the funds for just this year to enter into the budget.
Any questions or comments? Mr. Hughes, a second?
Second.
Ms. Gatta? All those in favor? Any opposed? That initiative is reported to the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that concludes our business. The Committee on Codes, Judiciary, and Consumer Affairs is now closed.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Economic Development and Planning, to be chaired by Legislator Hughes.
call to order the meeting of the Committee on Economic Development and Planning. We have 5 items tonight. The first is EDP 3. It's a resolution authorizing the implementation and funding in the first instance of the 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program and eligible costs. And this is a transportation federal aid project and appropriating funds therefore. I think I'm going to turn to Paul Sheldon to discuss this for us. We have 2 of these tonight. I think they're related, but
Yes.
they are.
Yes. Thank you. In 2022, the Capital District Transportation Committee awarded Schenectady County 2 projects for the 2022-27 Transportation Improvement Program. The first of these projects was a planning and environmental linkage study for the relocation of the I-890 Exit 4C ramp next to the Schenectady County Community College. The purpose of the study is to evaluate transportation alternatives to improve traffic safety and pedestrian safety at the Exit 4C State Street intersection by potentially moving the exit west to a location between the college and the Mohawk River. Federally funded projects are required to follow the National Environmental Policy Act to assess the environmental effects of their proposed actions before making decisions. Large projects such as this could potentially take years of planning to gather and analyze data, develop alternatives, conduct stakeholder and public meetings before determining the best alternative. A Pell study can actually help the NEPA decision-making process early by enabling the involved agencies to better communicate and coordinate during the project planning stages. The work involved in the study can be adopted into the NEPA process during the future project development. We are planning on starting the study in June of this year and should last approximately 18 months. Total cost of the study is $440,000. The federal government is covering 80% of the project costs, with the county covering the remaining 20%.
So a comment from me, and then we'll open it for questions. It's a very early step and a very small step, but the potential of this project is pretty revolutionary for Lower State Street, for the Mohawk Gateway. This would reroute traffic behind the community college, open up that whole area where Exit 4C and Washington Avenue come together for better access to the college, some flood control. It's a pretty revolutionary project, and as I say, this is like a first step. Other questions or comments from members? Eric Hess, please.
I know it's very early on in the planning process, but we discussed an indoor soccer dome on the back side of the parking lot at SCC. Do you know if that's going to be in front of that or behind it, or any preliminary ideas?
So the point of the study itself is that that's anticipated. So once it goes out to bid, the engineers and the architects looking at potentially where it could go, we'll take that into account. We'll take into the parking into account and the furthest distant point. The important pieces Legislator Hughes mentioned is just getting into the queue for federal funding for this. So it's very early in the process, but this will not have any effect to the indoor soccer.
Any other questions?
Move to report.
A second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
EDP 4 is moved to the agenda, or EDP 3 rather. EDP 4 is a resolution authorizing implementation and funding in the first instance of 100% of the federal aid and state Marchicelli program and eligible costs for a transportation federal aid project appropriating funds therefore, which is a companion, Paul, to the other resolution, I believe.
Yeah, well, it's the second grant we received from the Capital District Transportation Committee. This was for Grand Boulevard pavement preservation and a bicycle facility improvement project. This project involves basically the hot-in-place recycling of the existing asphalt surface and placing a asphalt top course. We're also examining the installation of bike lanes along Grand Boulevard, as well as providing ADA accessible ramps and high-visibility crosswalks. Design work is supposed to begin this June with construction in 2025. The design cost is approximately $94,000. Federal government is covering 80% of the costs, the state's covering 15%, and the county's covering the remaining 5% of the design costs.
Any questions?
Is that,
Legislator Osterlich.
Is that for the whole length of Grand Boulevard?
No, just from the city line to Van Antwerp Road.
Thank you.
Legislator Osterlich.
I just want to make sure it's going to be following where the path is rather intermittent now. It'll be the same path that's been in the past.
Bike path?
not the bike lane, but the walk path, hike bike path?
Well, since the lanes are so wide, we were thinking about using using the shoulder of the road as the bike lane. But we're looking at a few other alternatives too. Right now, we're just going to study and see if the shoulder of the road is the best place to put a bike lane, or maybe some other location. So.
And the asphalt path that's there now intermittently, will that be a sidewalk?
The sidewalk area, or no, we're not going to be doing anything with a sidewalk at this point. We're just going to do the ADA ramps at the intersections. We put in for a sidewalk project, but it wasn't approved by the CDTC at the time.
Okay.
So.
I misunderstood.
Questions or comments other? Can I have a motion and a second, please?
Move to report.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Brings us to EDP 5. I think we're all set.
Yes.
Okay. And you're on for this? Okay.
No, I was going to go.
Oh, you're going to go too. Commissioner Gillen is here. This resolution authorizes the county manager to enter into a memorandum of agreement and an easement for the construction of a gateway mobility hub in the city of Schenectady. And it really is just a piece of county property that is behind this that's kind of needed for that project to move forward. But Ray has additional details.
Sure. The Land Bank and Metroplex, as you remember, demolished the old bus station, which was a great day in the community because it was really a nightmare, a mess of a building. And Metroplex owns that lot. And CDTA, with the help of Senator Schumer, has secured $4 million to build the Capital Region's first mobility hub in downtown Schenectady at the site of the former bus station. The mobility hub will provide multimodal bike rentals, scooter rentals, EV rentals, parking, access to the Red Line BRT, the Bus Rapid Transit line, and intercity bus service. It's 100% federally funded, so there's no local share, which is excellent. We thank Carm Bazile and his team at CDTA and Senator Schumer for stepping up. They plan to build several of these in the region, but we are first, and we're very excited about that. The majority of the site is owned by Metroplex. The county owned a small strip of land, just enough for a handful of spots right behind what used to be the old bus station. It was owned in trust for the college. The college supports this completely. It's going to be a great asset for the college. So what we're asking for your approval is to provide for some easements and a memorandum of understanding that need to be signed so that construction can begin. This project is ready to begin almost immediately.
Have any questions or comments from our members? Hearing none, can I?
Yep.
Oh, did I see a question? Legislator Hess.
It's covered in the memorandum of understanding. Metroplex will have a role, the DSIC, CDTA, so all of that's spelled out who's doing the maintenance for the mobility hub. And the county will continue to own this property. We're just asking for an easement.
Move to report.
Sorry, Chairman Gillen, did you say this is a pilot for other mobility hubs throughout the
Yes.
state? First one?
It's multimodal. All forms of transportation, from scooters to bikes to EVs, buses, all be available in one location. They're very excited about. They'll also have some EV chargers there. We think it's a great addition to Lower State Street and really replaces what had been an eyesore, the old bus station.
I have a motion. Can I have a second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
EDP 5 is moved to the agenda. EDP 6 is a resolution authorizing the county manager to enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement with developers or owners of qualifying alternative energy systems. Follow on to a change in policy.
Yes, this legislature mandated that solar projects pay a pilot under state law. They're technically tax exempt. So you all came together and enacted legislation that put the solar developers on notice that they must pay taxes to the county, to the local school districts, and to the towns and villages in Schenectady County. And because of that, we're here tonight to talk about two pilots. The first one's in Princetown at 248 Kelly Station Road. It's been approved. It's a 5-megawatt project. We negotiated the highest payment we've ever been able to get on a pilot, which is $6,000 per megawatt, with a 3% annual increase year after year over the 15-year term of the pilot. The Chalmont School District is scheduled to approve that pilot this evening. Princetown, as you know, has no town tax, so they entered into a host benefit agreement with the developer to receive funding under this pilot. The pilot will generate $120,000 for the county over the term of the pilot. So we're recommending that this be approved. I'd like to cover the other pilot, if that's okay, which is Rotterdam Renewables. It's a 5-megawatt project as well on Putnam Road. We were able to negotiate an even higher payment, $6,500 per megawatt, with a 2% increase over the 15-year term of the pilot. This creates $93,000 in revenue. And again, we've worked cooperatively with the town and the school district to basically enact the same agreements, negotiate the agreements together, and then have the usual pro rata share of county, town, and school district that is on any tax bill would be maintained in this agreement. But so we're asking for approval tonight of both of these pilot agreements that generate new revenue for the county. I apologize. I have Mark Storty calling in from the Glenville Planning Board tonight, where they've hopefully approved a project at Adirondack Beverage, so I apologize. It's all good stuff, though.
Wheels of government continue to move.
Night meetings.
Do we have any questions on either of these pilots related to solar projects from any of the members?
Just a clarifying question. So if we have a project that supersedes moratorium, where the state can come in and say, this is for the public good, we're going to go over and above the moratorium rules. I think they can do that if it's 20 megawatts or larger, right? Will we still enact a pilot? This kind of supersedes all of that as well. We'll still be able to pull a pilot through?
It's a good question. So these, I should have mentioned that. I'm glad you brought it up. These two solar projects have been approved by Princetown and Rotterdam. They're fully through the approval process. So before work can start, they needed to come in and negotiate the pilot with us. On any project, any solar project that's done in Schenectady County, the rule is that they must pay a pilot. They are not automatically tax exempt. No matter what size, no matter where the location, they must pay taxes.
Thanks for the clarification, and thanks for the work on our behalf.
Any other questions? Can I have a motion and a second? Second? Okay. Moved by Legislator McGill and seconded by Legislator Cuomo. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Measures moved to the agenda. The final item in this committee tonight is EDP 7. It's a change of position at the Department of Economic Development and Planning, and I will let Commissioner Gillen.
Thank you. We have really consolidated our economic development team with Metroplex, the county IDA, the city IDA, the land bank. It's a very lean and productive team. I won't keep you here as I did last meeting for a long time to go over the results of that team, but a request tonight that we are able to move forward with promoting a Planner 1 to Senior Planner. We have a vacancy there. It's well-deserved. The incumbent has been in the Planner 1 position for 29 years and deserves an upgrade. We have the support of the county manager and Jackie and Joe McQueen. Their memos are in the packet. We're just hoping to keep moving this forward.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Motion is moved to the agenda, and Committee on Economic Development and Planning is closed.
Thank you.
Our next committee is the Committee on Education and Libraries, to be chaired by Legislator Ostolich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I call the Committee on Education and Libraries to order. We have two items on the agenda tonight, and I'd like to introduce to you Charity Thorne, who's our Executive Director of Library Operations, and Beth Medeo, and I don't know your title.
Assistant Director for Library Operations.
Thank you. Our first item is EL1, a resolution approving capital budget amendments for equipment purchases at the Schenectady County Public Library. And if you could, Ms. Thorne, give us a background.
Sure. So for those of you who may not be familiar, we use RFID equipment at the library to automate a lot of our materials handling. So anytime that someone uses it to check out, that's how it reads the book and attaches it to their card. We have the big sorter at the central library that checks it in automatically and takes it off their card. It's also how our security system works with the gates where something beeps if it's taken out. So really a critical part of our operations and our infrastructure, and all of that equipment is end of life and end of service. So this would be funding the project to replace that with refreshed equipment.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Can I get a motion? First, Holly Villano. Can I get a second? Second, thank you, Legislator Hughes. All in favor?
Aye.
And the initiative is reported to the floor. The second resolution is EL2, a resolution creating and eliminating certain positions at the Schenectady County Public Library. And if you could, a little bit on that.
Sure. So this is to both take an existing librarian 2 position, which is not an entry-level position. It's a more experienced librarian position that the library has been attempting to recruit for I think, about a year, right? Without much luck, and convert it to a librarian 1 position, which is much easier, I think, in most industries right now to recruit at the entry level and then retain people by providing growth opportunities. And then also to move funds from where we are paying substitute employees to help staff our service desks and create an additional full-time librarian 1 position. We're canvassing right now. We have a lot of really great candidates, so we're eager to have opportunities to offer them and to move to a more sustainable staffing model where we're not relying on substitute employees to staff our frontline service desk.
Great. Any questions or comments? Can I get a motion? First, Legislator Hughes. Second, Legislator McGill. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And the resolution is reported to the floor. And I want to thank you especially for the tour of all of the libraries today. It's a great annual event and so important. Thanks.
Thank you.
And the Committee on Education Libraries is now closed.
Thank you. And if you would, also the Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Committee on Health, Housing, and Human Services is now called to order. We have one item on the agenda, and I'd like to invite Public Health Director Keith Brown. The first item is HHHS 8, a resolution accepting monies from Centers for Disease Control and Prevention regarding funding for initiatives in response to COVID-19. And if you could, please, Mr. Brown.
Sure. Hi, everybody. So we have a subcontract with the Center for Healthcare Workforce Development to deploy community health workers out throughout the county. Largely focused on COVID work, but they can talk about some other things in the course of that. Being at Schenectady County Public Health Services, being a victim of our own success, that grant is going so well that the CDC wants to give us more money to the tune of a 25% increase. So what we're going to propose to do with that is to turn that right back into staffing support and other resources to get that program out there. I know folks are probably thinking, what are you doing? What could you possibly be doing around COVID work now? But really, it's about engaging folks around sort of staying up on boosters if they're eligible, making sure they have correct information, and really just sort of doing community outreach on that stuff, letting them know where they can still get vaccinated, tested, distributing the rapid tests, things like that. So.
Great. And for those watching from home, they can always find information on SchenectadyCounty.com. Any questions or comments? Can I get a motion? Thank you, Legislator, was that Hughes? And can I get a, no, Russo, and a second by Legislator Hughes. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion is reported to the floor. The initiative is reported to the floor, and that concludes our business on Health, Housing, and Human Services. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next committee is the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure, to be chaired by Legislative Attorney.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to call to order the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure. This evening we have 6 items on the agenda. The first is PFTI 8, a resolution approving capital budget amendments for improvements to the Schenectady County Correctional Facility. This evening we have Scott Tomlinson, our facilities engineer, to help explain. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you. This February, construction bids were opened to complete the sanitary sewer work at the correctional facility. This work includes rerouting the main sanitary lines from all sections of the jail and sending them through a multi-grinder pump system before they are sent to the city's sanitary system. The additional funds we're requesting will cover the cost of the low bid contractor as well as the design work that we completed last year.
Any questions for Scott? Thank you. There's a second, I believe. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 8 is moved to the agenda. Next is PFTI 9, resolution approving capital budget amendments for interior improvements at the Karen B. Johnson Branch Library Building. Scott.
The ongoing leaks that we've had at the Central Library in downtown Schenectady have caused significant water damage to the interior space. The roof replacement that is currently underway, once it's complete, the damaged flooring, ceiling, shelving will need to be replaced before any more damage is done to the space or the books in the library. We're asking that the current 2023 capital budget be amended to include these urgent repairs.
Move to report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 9 is moved to the agenda. Next is PFTI 10, resolution approving capital budget amendments for environmental remediation of certain county-owned real property.
So the county-owned property beneath what it was previously the Trusco Bank building is required to have ongoing environmental monitoring due to the petroleum hydrocarbons in the soil. The DEC has recently approved a remediation plan for this area involving the use of biodegrading injections that will dissolve the contaminants in the soil. Both the DEC and our environmental consultants are confident that this will reduce the amount of contamination at the site, also reducing the amount of annual testing needed. We're asking to amend the current 2023 capital budget to include this remediation work.
Questions?
Just a clarifying question. There's petroleum distillates underneath Trusco property. Is that like a flume from the old Floyd ladder or something like that? Or
Yeah, as far as I know from the Alco days, just oils that have been in the soil for some long time. I'm not sure the background is much on it.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. Legislator McGill. Move to
Second.
report. Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 10 is moved to the agenda. Next is, thank you, Scott. Yep. Next is PFTI 11, a resolution approving capital budget and amendments for improvements to the Flex Pod hangar project at the Schenectady County Airport. County Manager Rory Fluman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for sharing your mic. So this is our ongoing Flex Pod build out at the airport. This is an additional $221,000 that we're asking the legislature for today. As we're upfitting this 4-pod hangar, one of the pods is going to be fitted for classroom space, bathroom, teaching materials, those kind of things. So we need to make sure that before we pour the foundation, the appropriate piping's in place. So it's kind of a time-critical piece. We're very close to breaking ground. We've just received, are close to receiving final clearance from the FAA. I just was on the phone with President Sedimuno just very today. He was across the country recruiting airlines for partnerships, for direct internships and direct relationships for folks to train at Schenectady Airport, for being able to fly planes. If you checked the carriers or what's happening in the pilot and planes world, there are just less and less people that can fly these airplanes. So not only is our community college and this body excited to get this going, but we have steady out there lining up a lot of outside relationships to make sure that the flow of students into our community college is strong.
Questions?
Move to report.
Thank you, Legislator Hughes. Is there a second? Second, Legislator Villano. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 11 is moved to the agenda. Thank you, County Manager Fluman. And next is PFTI 12, resolution approving capital budget amendments for the purchase of various vehicles by the Department of Public Works. We have Paul Sheldon with us here tonight. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you. We're in the process of purchasing vehicles for the 2023 capital budget for the various departments that require vehicles, current vehicles. Most vehicles we have purchased thus far have come in under budget or around the budget we have anticipated. However, the costs associated with hybrid vehicles have increased dramatically. 4 hybrid vehicles that were requested in the capital budget, however, the cost of each vehicle has cost nearly $11,000 over budget. Increased fuel costs have caused the demand for EV and hybrid vehicles to increase significantly over the last 12 months. Inflation rate of 6% over the last few months has also made matters a little bit worse. We were able to purchase 2 of the 4 hybrid vehicles requested in the capital budget through savings on other vehicle purchases. However, the remaining 2 vehicles are over our remaining budget. We are requesting an additional $22,000 to purchase the remaining 2 vehicles that were budgeted in this 2023 capital budget.
Questions?
Move to report.
Thank you. Second, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 12 is moved to the agenda. Finally, PFTI 13, a resolution approving capital budget amendments for the purchase of a truck by the Department of Public Works.
Thank you. We're requesting an additional $275,000 for the purchase of a fully equipped 2023 Tenco model single-axle dump truck. New truck is replacing an existing 15-year-old plow truck with 115,000 miles. Cost to maintain the vehicle far exceeds the value of the truck, thus necessitating the need to replace it. The new truck will be fully equipped for winter operations with snow plow and wing, auto chains, GPS, and 2-way radio.
Question?
Move to report.
Thank you. Second. Second, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. PFTI 13 is moved to the agenda. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes our business for the Committee on Public Facilities, Transportation, and Infrastructure.
Thank you, sir. Our next committee is the Committee on Public Safety and Firefighting, to be chaired by Legislator Constantine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have one item tonight, PSF 6. It's a resolution to accept monies from the New York State Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services for purposes outlined in the statewide Interoperable Communication Targeted Grant Program. Our Director of the Unified Communication System, Kevin Spallon, is with us tonight to answer your questions and tell you how much money we're taking.
Thank you, sir. We're excited to say that we are one of 15 recipients to receive $6 million. This is the same grant that we applied for back 5 years ago when we started our communications program upgrade. We are one of the counties to win due to our relationship we've built with Homeland Security and Albany County. We we shared the core with them. We are working to expand this radio system to add now adjoining counties such as Schoharie, Rensselaer, and work towards Saratoga. So we're working hard to keep building more counties into a shared process. So we are happy to say that we won $6 million. We're going to use it towards additional redundancy in our system. We're going to add additional microwave connections to the counties adjacent to us, additional communications connections with Albany County to create redundancy there. Interoperability is the key word in this world, so we're very happy where we are. Hope you accept.
Thank you, Director. That's great news. Are there any questions? And make a motion?
Move to report.
Second? All in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? None? Thank you. Director, Public Safety and Firefighting will be closed. PSF 6, move to the agenda.
And our final committee meeting of the evening is the Committee on Ways and Means, to be chaired by Legislator Hughes.
We have one new item in Ways and Means tonight. It's WM4, a resolution correcting clerical errors on the municipal tax roll of Duanesburg, and our Finance Commissioner, Jacqueline Falatico, is here to discuss that with us, and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got one correction of error brought to you tonight from the town of Duanesburg. The amount to cancel is $4,309.77. And essentially what happened was the property was valued as if a house had been constructed, and it has not been yet.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Legislator McGill.
Seeing as all the rest of the agenda are dual referrals from other committees, I make a motion that we move the agenda in its entirety to the calendar.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Ways and Means Committee is now closed.
Yep. Prior to adjourning our committee meeting this evening, I'd like to recognize Legislator Russo for a couple of brief comments.
Thank you, Legislator. Thank you, Chairman Jasinski. I just wanted to address my colleagues and the viewing public sitting in front of you after a number of cycles of having lots of paper distributed so that we as legislative members had a full understanding of the agenda in front of us. Each committee and each public session are electronic tablets, and I want to recognize my colleagues, Tom Constantine, who's my co-chair on technology, but more importantly, my colleague, Kathy Gatta, who probably 3 or 4 years ago said, this is crazy that we keep printing 10, 40, 100, 200 pages for 15 people and a stack over here for the public twice a month. This is the culmination of that shout out and that call to action. Thank you, Legislator Gatta, for putting the Technology Committee on notice. Thank you, Clerk of the Legislature, Jeff Hall, for helping us to acquire the technology. And now here we are finally deployed in front of everyone. So these tablets will give us access to the agenda. They've got access to supporting documents. They'll help us to save 25,000 pages a year of additional and extensive paper use that, quite frankly, used and then goes into a shred. So as a benefactor and a steward of our community and as a steward of our environment, I think it's most important to do. It's certainly a more efficient way. It's easy to scroll, scan. It's aligned with technology that I think everyone has in their pocket, and 4 or 5 probably laying around the house. These are will stay here. They're for legislative use only. I just want to say thank you to all who made this possible. In terms of accessibility and transparency, we will always have a few paper copies for the public who don't have access to a tablet walking in the door. But if they too want to be stewards, we have a QR code that they can scan on their phone or on their electronic device and read the agenda at hand real time along with us. So again, thank you, Legislator Gatta, for cracking the whip on this initiative a long time ago. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you all.